Hello, I'm Marwa Sarah,
And I'm Sarah Star.
and we are students from the Marwa Sarah University, Baghdad, Iraq, and we are going to read a few pages from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, from
From page 378.
to page 385.
Ron had burst the glass in both windows. Riddle's eyes were gone, and the standstill lining of the locket was smoking slightly. The thing that had lifted the Horcrux had vanished. Torturing Ron had been his final act. The sword clanged as Ron dropped it. He had sunk to his knees, his head in his arms. He was shaken, but not. Harry realized from cold. Harry crammed the broken locket into his bucket, knelt down beside Ron, and blessed a hand cautiously on his shoulder. He took it as a good sign that Ron did not throw it off. "After you left," he said in a low voice, grateful for the fact that Ron's face was hidden. "She cried for a week, probably longer, only she didn't want me to see. There were lots of nights when we never even spoken to each other. With you gone," he could not finish. It was only now that Ron was here again that Harry fully realized how much his obstinacy had caused them. "She's like my sister," he went on. "I love her like a sister, and I reckon that she feels the same way about me. It always been like that. I thought you knew." Ron did not respond, but turned his face away from Harry and wiped his nose noisily on his sleeve. Harry got to his feet again and walked to where Ron's enormous rucksack lay yards away, discarded as Ron had run toward the bull to save Harry from drowning. He hoisted it onto his own back and walked back to Ron, who clambered to his feet as Harry approached, eyes bloodshot but otherwise composed. "I'm sorry," he said in a thick voice. "I'm sorry I left. I know I was a..." He looked around at the darkness, as if hoping a bad enough word would swoop down upon him and claim him. "You've sort of made up for it tonight," said Harry, getting the sword, finishing off the Horcrux, saving my life. "That makes me sound a lot cooler than I was," Ron mumbled. "Stuff like that always sounds cooler than it really was," said Harry. "I've been trying to tell you that for years." Simultaneously, they walked forward and hugged, Harry gripping the still sobbing back of Ron's jacket. "And now," said Harry, as they broke apart, "all we've got to do is find the tent again." But it was not difficult. Though the walk through the dark forest with the doe had seemed lengthy, with Ron by his side, the journey back seemed to take a surprisingly short time. Harry could not wait to wake Hermione, and it was with a quickening excitement that he entered the tent, Ron lagging a little behind him. It was gloriously warm after the bull in the forest. The only illumination, the bluebell flames still shimmering in a bowl on the floor. Hermione was fast asleep, curled up under her blankets, and did not move until Harry had said her name several times. "Hermione!" She stared, then sat up quickly, pushing her hair out of her face. "What's wrong, Harry? Are you all right?" "It's okay, everything's fine." "More than fine. I'm great that there's someone here." "What do you mean? Who?" She saw Ron, who stood there holding the sword and dripping into the threaded bar carpet. Harry backed into a shadowy corner, slipped off Ron's rucksack, and attempted to blend in with the canvas. Hermione slid out of her bunk and moved like a sleepwalker toward Ron, her eyes upon his pale face. She stopped right in front of him, her lips slightly parted, her eyes wide. Ron gave a weak, hopeful smile and half raised his arms. Hermione launched herself forward and started bunching every inch of him that she could reach. Ouch! Oh, get off! What the? Hermione! Oh! You complete ours, Ron Weasley. She punctuated every word with a blow. Ron backed away, shielding his head as Hermione advanced. You cruel? Back here? After weeks and weeks? Oh, where's my wand? She looked as though ready to wrestle it out of Harry's hand and reacted instinctively. Prodigo. The invisible shield erupted between Ron and Hermione. The force of it knocked her backward into the floor, spitting hair out of her mouth. She leapt up again. Hermione, said Harry, calm. I will not calm down, she screamed. Never before he had seen her lose control like this. She looked quite demented. Give me back my wand. Give it back to me. Hermione, will you please? Don't you try to tell me what to do, Harry Potter. She screeched. Don't you dare. Give it back now. And you. She was pointing at Ron in a dire accusation. It was like a malediction, and Harry could not blame Ron for returning civil tips. I came running after you. I called you. I begged you to come back. I know, Ron said. Hermione, I'm sorry. I'm really... Oh, you're sorry? She laughed, a high-pitched, out-of-control sound. Ron looked at Harry for help, but Harry merely grimaced his helplessness. You come back after weeks? Weeks? And you think it's all going to be all right if you just say sorry? Well, what else can I say? Ron shouted, and Harry was glad that Ron was fighting back. Oh, I don't know, yelled Hermione with awful sarcasm. Wreck your brains, Ron. That should only take a couple of seconds. Hermione, interjected Harry, who considered this a low blow. He just saved my life. I don't care, she screamed. I don't care what he's done. Weeks and weeks, we could have been dead for all he knew. I knew you weren't dead, bellowed Ron, drowning her voice for the first time, and approaching as close as he could with a shielding charm between them. Harry's all over the prophet and all over the radio. They were looking for you everywhere. All these rumors and mental stories, I knew I'd hear straight off if you were dead. You don't know what it's been like. What it's been like for you. Her voice was now so shrill. Only Beth would be able to hear it soon. But she had reached a level of indignation that rendered her temporarily speechless. And Ron seized his opportunity. I wanted to come back the minute I disapparated, but I walked straight into a gang of snatchers. Hermione, and I couldn't go anywhere. A gang of what? Asked Harry, as Hermione threw herself down into a chair with her arms and legs across so tightly it seems unlikely that she would unravel them for several years.
Snatchers, said Ron. They are everywhere. Gangs trying to earn gold by rounding up Muggleborns and blood traders. There's a reward from the ministry for everyone captured. I was on my own and I looked like I might be school age. They got really excited. Though I was a Muggleborn in hiding, I had to talk fast to get out of being dragged to the ministry. What did you say to them? Told them I was Stan Chumbike, first person I could think of. And they believed that? They weren't the brightest. One of them was definitely Bart Schroll. The smell of him. Ron glanced at Hermione, clearly hopeful she might soften at his small instant of humor. But her expression remained stony above her tightly knotted lips. Anyway, they had a row about whether I was Stan or not. It was a bit pathetic, to be honest, but there were still 5 of them and only 1 of me, and they'd taken my wand. Then 2 of them got into a fight, and while the others were distracted, I managed to hit the one holding me in the stomach, grabbed his wand, disarmed the block holding mine, and separated. I didn't I didn't do it so well, splinched myself again. Ron held up his right hand to show 2 missing fingernails. Hermione raised her eyebrows coldly. And I came out miles from where you were. By the time I got back to that bit of river bank where we'd been, you'd gone. Gosh, what a gripping story, Hermione said in a lofty voice she adopted when wishing to wand. You must have been simply terrified. Meanwhile, we went to Godric's Hollow, and then let's think what happened, Harry. Oh yeah, you know whose snake turned up? It nearly killed both of us. And then, you know who himself arrived and missed us by about a second? What? Said Ron, gabbing from her to Harry, but Hermione ignored him. Imagine losing fingernails, Harry. That really puts our suffering into perspective, doesn't it? Hermione, said Harry quietly, Ron just saved my life. She appeared not to have heard him. One thing I would like to know, though, she said, fixing her eye on a spot a foot over Ron's head. How exactly did you find us tonight? That's important. Once we know, we'll be able to make sure we're not visited by anyone else we don't want to see. Ron glared at her, then pulled a small silver object from his jeans bucket. This. She had to look at Ron to see what he was showing them. The Deluminator? She asked, so surprised she forgot to look cold and fierce. It doesn't turn the lights on and off, said Ron. I don't know how it works or why it happened then and not any other time because I've been wanting to come back since ever I left, but I was listening to the radio really early on Christmas morning and I heard you. He was looking at Hermione. You heard me on the radio? She asked incredulously. No, I heard you coming out of my pocket, your voice. He held up the Deluminator again. Came out of this. And what exactly did I say? Asked Hermione, her tone somewhere between skepticism and curiosity. My name, Ron, and you said something about a wand? Hermione turned a fiery shade of scarlet. Harry remembered it had been the first time Ron's name had been said aloud by either of them since the day he had left. Hermione had mentioned it when talking about repairing Harry's wand. So I took it out, Ron went on, looking at the Deluminator, and it didn't seem different or anything, but I was sure I heard you, so I clicked it. And the light went out in my room, but another light appeared right outside the window. Ron raised his empty hand and pointed in front of him. His eyes focused on something neither Harry nor Hermione could see. It was a ball of light, kind of pulsing and bluish, like that light you get around a port key, you know? Yeah, said Harry and Hermione together automatically. I knew that this was it, said Ron. I grabbed my stuff and backed it. Then I put on my rucksack and went out into the garden. The little ball of light was hovering there, waiting for me. And when I came out, it bobbed along a bit. And I followed it behind the shed. And then it went inside me. Sorry, said Harry, sure he had not heard correctly. It sort of floated toward me, said Ron, illustrating the movement with his free index finger, right to my chest. And then it just went straight through. It was here. He touched a point close to his heart. And I could feel it. It was hot. And once it was inside me, I knew I could feel it. It was hot. And once it was inside me, I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew it would take me where I needed to go. So I disapparated and came out on the side of a hill. There was snow everywhere. Where? We were there, said Harry. We spent 2 nights there, and the second night I kept thinking I could hear someone moving around and in the dark and calling out. Yeah, well, that would have been me, said Ron. Your protective spells work anyway, because I couldn't see you and I couldn't hear you. I was sure you were around though, so in the end I got my sleeping bag. And waited for one of you to appear. I thought you'd have to show yourselves when you backed up the tent. No, actually, said Hermione. We've been separating under the invisibility clock as an extra precaution, and we left really early because, as Harry says, we'd heard somebody blundering around. Well, I stayed on that hill all day, said Ron. I kept hoping you'd appear, but when it started to get dark, I knew I must have missed you. So I clicked the illuminator again. The blue light came out and went inside me, and I disapparated and arrived here in these woods. I still couldn't see you, so I just had to hope one of you would show yourselves in the end, and Harry did well. I saw the dog first, obviously. You saw the what? Said Hermione sharply. They explained what had happened, and as the story of the silver doe and the sword in the pool unfolded, Hermione frowned from one to other of them, concentrating so hard she forgot to keep her limbs locked together. But it must have been a Patronus, she said. Couldn't you see who was casting it? Didn't you see anyone? And it led you to the sword? I can't believe this. Then what happened?